Hello guys, this is Kiran Dimension. We make short technical videos. This is interview question series for Angular. Let's get started. Today we are going to talk about Angular lifecycle hooks. Assuming we all know about Angular components, the first piece of code that gets executed on the instantiation of a component is the constructor block, post which Angular lifecycle hooks comes into play. Let's try to understand more about Angular lifecycle hooks. So most of us think that the first lifecycle hook which gets executed is ng on it, whereas that is not the case. The first lifecycle hook which gets executed is ng on changes, which basically keep track of your input properties for the component. It receives an object called simple changes, which basically keeps track of the current and the previous value for that input property. And coming to the next one, which is ng on it. As the name suggests, it initializes the component and sets the input property for the component. So the third one which we see is called ng do check, which is called after every ng on changes call and for the first time when ng on init is called. Also, this could be used to handle the changes which happens outside the change detection mechanism of Angular. Coming to the fourth lifecycle hook, which is ng after content init. This is usually called after the first ng do check call, and this is to respond to the content projection in the component. Next we have ng after content check. Or does it sound like a history lecture to you now? I was kidding. Let's get on to the code.
Oh my god! Wow!
So as you can see, we have written two components here. One is hello component and the other one is called app component. You can see we have written all the lifecycle hooks in this component. Let's try to execute this code. Okay, so now you can see the first call which happens is the constructor, as I've already told in the start of the video. And the second one is ng on changes, and third, as we told, is ng on init. Post which we have ng do check. Next lifecycle hook what we see is ng after content init. Next is ng after content checked, and the next one is ng after view init, and the last one what we see is ng after view checked. Few of my friends might also be interested in a question, whereas why these three lifecycle hooks are being repeated here. So the answer to that lies in my explanation which I did for ng do check, where I told that ng do check executes for every ng on changes and the first ng on init, which is the case here. So let's get back to our theory class. So let's try to understand the remaining lifecycle hooks. So for the first time, whenever ng do check call is made, we'll have the subsequent ng after content init and ng after content check and ng after view init, and the last one would be ng after view check. So as you can see, the name itself explains ng after content init. So whenever the content is initialized for the component, that is when this is called. And whenever the change detection is able to check the content which is to be projected, that is when ng after content checked is called. ng after view init, whenever the view is properly initialized, that is when this is called. And whenever the view which is to be projected is checked by the default change detection mechanism of Angular, that is when we see ng after view checked call. For every further call which ng do check executes, we will have only ng after content checked and ng after view checked being called, because the initialization only happens for the first time, and for the all other ng do checks call, we just get the content checked and the view checked before it is being projected on the browser. So let's try to understand more about how ng on changes work. As you can see in hello component, we have an input field called name, And we have ng on changes implementation where I'm printing the changes, which is a simple changes object which ng on changes receives on every change for the component. So the change is triggered via app component. As you can see, the method change state, which will trigger a change on the property name. So coming to hello world, if you see, we have our ng on changes here. Let's try to execute. So whenever I click on the button, it triggers a change, and you can see here that we have got the ng on changes printing the current value as well as the previous value. So as we know, the previous value was Angular, which is the default when the component was initialized, and the current value is 0.294, which is printed here. And you can see this is the third time when we have ng do check called. As I told, ng do check is called for every ng on changes call, and for every ng do check we'll have ng after content checked, and we'll have ng after view checked. I can also show you one more time. If I click here, you can see this is what gets repeated. Again, you have ng on changes. The previous value was 0294 and the current value is 0.545, and we again have a ng do check. Thanks for watching this video. Do let us know your feedback in the comment section. Also, let us know if you want a video on a particular topic or a question. That's all from Skill Dimension. We'll see you in another video.